Today I'm going to get my new differential installed in the Jeep. This is the Eaton TrueTrack, made specifically for the AMC 20, which is the 8.875 ring gear size. I've already installed the new gear in the last episode or last part. I've also already installed the new side bearings, this side and the other side. I went with this because it's exactly what I need. I mean, everyone, based on the application you're going to use your vehicle in, you need to decide what you want, but it's not a locker which is either on or off, and it's not, and it is limited slip, but it's not based on clutches that could wear out. It's actually got, and I'll put an exploded view, it's got small gears and large gears in here, and it goes on the principle that small gears have an advantage of turning larger gears and larger gears have a disadvantage of turning smaller gears, and based on that it can actually transfer the traction to both sides. And there's actually a really good video on this on the Summit page, but it's if you just Google or search on YouTube for Eaton TrueTrack, you'll see it's got real nice exploded animation. It shows how this thing works. Perfect for my application, that's why I went with it. So let's get this thing in the housing, and I want to, first step one is I want to determine how much shim thickness do I need to get rid of any end play, which should be side to side play. I need to get to zero end play and know how much shimming is needed for that. So let's go do that. Okay, so I got it in and I got it pushed that way all I can, just because I don't want the pinion gear to interfere with what I'm trying to do here. We got plenty of backlash. Got to push this way. I just want to find out how much shim I got to put in here. Here's some of the original shims. That's too tight. Here's an original 96 thousandths. Here's one that came with the rebuild kit, 79 thousandths. Alright. That's gonna that's almost it. Let me set up my dial indicator and and see how much input we got. Okay, so with dial indicator on there, and I pull it this way, I got it set to 0, and if I push it that way, it goes to 2 thousandths. So I'm only 2 thousandths off with this shim. So if I take this thickness, add 2 thousandths, that'll be my starting, that'll be a thickness that represents zero end play, and I need to know that. And the way this book, and I know there's tons of ways and shortcuts and secrets on how to set these up, I'm just following this book. So don't shoot me about the process. And we're actually going to set this up and get our backlash setting with that zero end play thickness. Later on, we will preload these bearings, and the way the book does it is whatever your zero end play thickness is, you add 4 more thousandths on this side and 4 thousandths on that side. So let me go build my spreadsheet and get some things set up, figure out what this total thickness would be, and then basically I need to get some of it shifted to this side to get this whole thing to slide this way, start engaging that pinion gear a little better. So let me go do that real quick, and we'll start moving this thing over. Alright, shims. Let's talk about shims. Probably the most frustrating part of this whole project has been getting the right shims. If you remember back when I took apart when I pulled the differential out, on the outside of the side bearing races was my shims. In fact, they're over here. There's a 100 thousandth and a 96 thousandth. They're on the outside of those bearing cups, so I figured that's the way they should be, right? So when I looked at my the Master Rebuild kit I got a pack of these small shims, and I didn't really understand at the time, but I've later figured out why. I then went back on the internet and I ordered another pack of shims, and I got a whole bunch, but again, they're the small shims. To me, I thought that was useless. I even went to Rock Auto and bought 2 packs of shims for this axle, and again, they sent me these small shims. Well, I then did some more research and found out the company that I found that actually had and listed that they have AMC 20 shims that fit on the outside cup is Crown Automotive. And I talked to the tech support guy there, and we had a great conversation. And we basically determined that if you look at, there's several different drawings, and I'll put a couple examples up of this axle. They're animated or hand sketched drawings for parts diagrams. The ones that are the old and have the original part numbers, they show these larger outer shims. And if you look at any third-party manufacturer version of that diagram, they show the shims being on the inside of the bearings, which would then make sense why they're selling these smaller shims for that. And I could use these, but I've already put on my new shims, and I'm not going to new bearings, and I'm not going to take those bearings off just to use these. So I continued to look around. I said, well, since Crown has back ordered these for another 3 months, I'm going to see if I can find some at least that meet kind of the spec that I need. And that bearing race is just a hair over 3 inches. And so if I can find a shim that's the outside diameter is 3 inches or just below, and the inside diameter is big enough that everything passed through it, it'd be fine. These came from Motive Gear. I think it's part number SS12. Oh no, SS12 or SS22, one of the two. And this came with a big assortment of shims. I got 4 24s, I got 7 12,000s, I got 7 6,000s, I got a 99,000, 100,000, and a 78, and I believe a 103. And it's got these special ones. It's got this little lip on here, and that'll basically help you manage when you're putting a bunch of these smaller, thinner shims. You can stick them on that shelf and drop it in. It's going to really help, I think, if those get used in the combination. So anyway, that was kind of frustrating that they kind of changed gears. And again, I could have used those if I had caught my mistake earlier. It's something I just overlooked as to why I kept getting these smaller shims. So then I put together my spreadsheet again, and this one probably, this may not make sense to anyone but me, but I list all the shims that I have and the quantities, and then I come out here somewhere and I say, if I want a 100,000 shim, I'll just use the 100,000 that I've got, and if I got 100,000s there, what's going to take to get to my 177 thousandths shim thickness for zero end play? So I need another 77. And if I put one of my 78s with it, I'll be 100 thousandths, a little bit too tight, but that at least it's going to allow me to shift these shims back and forth and slowly inch over and figure out what it is. So I either have to go this way in this chart or this way in this chart, but I basically list all the possible combinations on the top, and I list then the matching answer to get to that 177 across the bottom and how I can get there with the shims that I have. So. Okay, I'm interested in what my backlash is currently. I still have all the shims over here on the right side and 0 shims on the left side. Just want to kind of track it. So got this thing zeroed out, and if I bring this forward, right there, 60 thousandths, 59 thousandths. So I'm going to write that down, and I'm going to start moving this thing over. I'm going to track it. I'm not going to bore you with the details. I'll kind of slide this through and start showing some indications on what it took to get it done while you're watching. Okay, so I added 66 thousandths to this side. Obviously, I took away 66 on this side. So this side's got 66 thousandths. This has got 111 thousandths. That gives me the 177 thousandths. I do have the bearing caps back on, and these are tightened down to spec. It's they're torqued to 87 foot-pounds. And at this point, I've got about, it's like 9,500, just over 9 thousandths. Now, the spec on this is they want, but one book says 5 to 9, another one says 7 to 9, and the sweet spot obviously is 8, and I'm just barely over that 9. But I've got some things to do later on. Again, this is kind of a starting point. When I add that 4,000, I don't have 4,000, so I'm going to have to add, it may be, or actually 4,000 this side and 4,000 this side to get my preload. When I do that, it may be off a little bit, and if it is off, and I have this type of situation where it's still a little loose, I'll put more on this side than this side, and I may have to only be putting, instead of 8 thousandths preload, I may only get to 6 thousandths, but I've got all that noted down here is what it is. I think we're now ready to do a little paint test and just see how far we're off. Now, on my little chart here, I'm way over here to the left. I wasn't expecting to be over here, except for it makes sense. Again, in part 3 where we installed the pinion gear, we had to raise that thing up 39 thousandths to get to the manufacturer's checking distance, kind of this first check. And by raising that up, it makes sense that this has got to go that way more than normal. So again, I didn't add much shim to this side. Anyway, we're set up. Let's do a little paint test and see how we go. And then what I'm expecting, I'm hoping, is, if anything, that the pinion has to go down some, and this then goes back over to the right. Let's do some painting. Okay, so I'm gonna give you a couple close-ups of the drive side here. I think it's obviously down toward the toe, and it's a little bit deep, is my two observations there. And then on the coast side, it seems to be centered in and out, but a little bit deep as well. And you know, you look at these diagrams and you try and figure out which one it is, and I'm kind of like none of them in that typical me. But I think I gather from seeing several different descriptions of what to do, the fact that this drive side is down on the toe, specifically whatever, they suggest to decrease the pinion shims, to take the pinion and move it further away from the differential. So we're going to go that route. I'm going back to my little spreadsheet that I've made for that last piece, where we're currently at 138 thousandths. Here's where experience is going to come in, and that I don't have, and that is how much to decrease it. I don't want to go too far. I think I got the option with the shims that I have to go to 137, 136, 135, 133. I think I'm going to take it down 3 thousandths down to 135 and see what that does, and then we'll do that. So I'm going to decrease the pinion shims. That'll be moving the pinion further away from the differential, and then we'll reset up a new backlash and do all this again. So as a result of configuration number 2 with a pinion depth of 135, here are the pictures of the drive and the co-side, and to be honest with you, when I compare them side by side with the first set of pictures, they really look about the same. So I need to continue taking that pinion down. So I'm going to take it now down to 129 thousandths, and I'll bring you back when I get that done. Well, for configuration 3, we got the kind of the same results again. This is at the 129 pinion depth, so I'm going to jump down some more. I'm going to take it down another 8 thousandths to 121. Let's see what that does. So as you can imagine, this just continued on. In fact, I ended up doing 10 different configurations uh, for this setup, and really kind of learned a lot. As I was doing it, I wasn't learning, but when I finally put together this little spreadsheet with the pictures and put them side by side where I could compare them, that's when things kind of, the light bulb kind of turned on. And if I zoom back up here to configuration number 1, you can see, and I misspoke earlier, that drive side under the drive column here, this first picture on the left, it's flat on the left side and rounded on the right. The right is closer to the face. The flat is closer to the root. And so we got to get that. We need the pattern needs to come out closer to the face because we've got some face there, but the root is being cut off because it's too deep. That means the pinion is too close to the ring gear, and we got to reduce shim. So I did get that part right and started moving down. I was just moving it too short. Here in configuration number 2, I only went down three thousandths. And just didn't see much change. Configuration 3 gets better. And if you just focus on, if I scroll down through here and just focus on just this drive picture, you can see how it, again, flat on the left and rounded on the right. Here it starts getting bigger. In configuration 5 and 6, it's bigger. 7, it's actually rounded on the left side and flat on the right. So that's a big change. We're going to come back to that. 8, it's rounded. And 9, it's now getting too far out on the face. So there's my transition. Somewhere, but if I go back up, somewhere between configuration number 6, where it still needs to, the pinion needs to be pulled away from the ring gear, and configuration number 7, where it actually shows it might be a little bit too far. So somewhere between there. So I got to go somewhere between 110 thousandths and 103 thousandths shim thickness, total shim thickness is where I need to be. And if I go back to my my actual pinion shim calculator or matrix, here shows the 103 and the 110. I've actually got the right shims. I could do any increment between there, 104, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. I think I'm going to try the 105 because I believe the 103 looks closer to what I'm looking for than the 110. So I want to be a little bit closer to 103. I'm going to my next one's going to be 105, and I'm going to be able to see if that gets us a lot closer. So here I'm going to let you enjoy a little time lapse of me tearing this apart, actually swapping out the pinion shim and getting everything set back up for the next configuration. So I was able, configuration number 11 was that 105 pinion shim thickness, and the outcome was good. It was better than the others, but I think I wanted to go then between that and the 103. So I then did configuration number 12 with a 104 thousandths shim thickness, and that gave me the best pattern I'm going to get. And again, I'm looking at the pattern. It's got more rounded edges than any of the other patterns. So the 104 pinion shim thickness is what I'm going to go with. Keep in mind, if you look here, the couple other things that we need to consider on my sheet here is that on the left side, I use the left side to control how much my ring gear is engaging with that pinion, and so that 84 thousandths is a key number to remember here, as well as because the 84 thousandths and 91 thousandths, that's really 2 thousandths shy of being zero end play. So just keep that as a footnote, the 2 thousandths shy. But let's go look at now the chart for what we got to do next for preloading these bearings, and keep in mind that 84 thousandths. Okay, I hope you don't mind, but I'm going to go into a little bit of detail with my configuration. There's nothing worse than a presentation. They skip the hard details, and voila, they made it magically work. So I wanted to include how I kind of got to where I'm going. So the key to this chart that I pulled back up is the very top number there. At zero end play, I need a total of 177 thousandths of shimming to make zero end play. And the book says that once you get your pattern right, you want to add 4 thousandths to the left side and 4 thousandths to the right side. Well, that's a total of 8 thousandths. If I take 8 thousandths, add it to the 177, I get 185. So I've readjusted another set of charts here for the 185, and that's my target. You'll see along across the bottom. And so my question is, how do I get to 185? And what are all the different combinations with the shims that I have? Well, if we focus here on set 3, the driver side total, if I go back to that 84 from the previous exercise, I need 84 and I need to add the 4 thousandths to 84. That gives me 88. Well, if I look with my available shims, I don't have an 88. I got an 85 and a 90. And so I got to choose 85 or 90. And the key to those, if you go to the very last row, you'll see it says delta 4 thousandths. What that tells, and it's minus 4,000. That means even if I pick either one of those two combinations, the 85 or the 90, sets 4 or 5, I'm not going to have the total 8 thousandths extra preload. I'm going to have 8 thousandths less 4 thousandths. I'm going to have 4 thousandths thickness of preload on those bearings, and I'm not real happy with that. So I started thinking a little bit outside the box, and I found a leftover shim from the pinions, the set of shims for the pinion. Now it's too big, but I can take down the diameter of this thing, make it work. The thickness is what I'm looking for. And what I did is I readjusted my chart to add, and I put over here in set 1, I added a 57,000 shim to this driver side section. And with that shim being available, and the combination of that plus a 24 plus a 6,000 shim, I can get to 87. That's very close to 88. It's only one shy on that side. And with that, I can also, on the bottom, for the passenger side, I can get to 97. That's a total of 184. I'm only 1 thousandth shy. I'm very satisfied with that. So I'm going to readjust. I'm going to take down the diameter of that 57,000 shim and go with this set number 1. And at this point, I'm really ready for final assembly. That means taking out all the setup bearing, the setup races, and actually start installing the real bearings and races and get all that stuff put in. And then we'll do a final paint test to see how we're doing. All right, we're hoping this is the last time. This is a Timken M80 2011. I've cleaned it with brake clean, and we're going to put it in for the last time. Well, the rubber mallet wasn't getting very far, and so I'm going to switch to this. Now it's moving. Oop, just heard it hit bottom. All right, so I've got a little bit of a dilemma where I've run this in as far as I can with my impact wrench. I still have end play, so I've not run it in too far, but it kind of wants to stop. And I think the reason it's trying to stop on me is because now I'm still trying to push that bearing in, and it's an interference bearing, so there's a lot of friction there, as well as now I think that bearing's touching that crush sleeve that's in here. Now I'm actually trying to compress that crush sleeve. And because of all that, this thing has almost become unbearable to move. So I'm going to come up with some cheater bars or something to give me a little better purchase on this thing, and see if I can get this thing to go back in. I bet it's still got to turn another 2 turns or so to get that play out, and then I got to put the preload on it. So all right, here's what I come up with. So I've adjusted my brace here a little bit. I've put this board on it as well, and brought it out closer underneath where I'm going to be pushing kind of down on this thing. And we're up on jack stands. I don't want this whole thing falling over, so I like my bracing there. I've got a pipe wrench on the yoke, and I've got it down here on the meat of it, not on these ears. It'd break the ears off, but down here it's going to get a good purchase on it and allow me to hold that still. And then I've also bought some 1-inch diameter black pipe, cut it in 3-foot long sections, and I got it both bracing on both these items here. So this should allow me to get some leverage on this and get that crush sleeve to start. I think once it starts, it'll actually go in, and I still got quite a bit of play. So I'm gonna put probably a 1/4 turn on it, and then we'll do some testing and see what goes on. I got just the slightest amount of end play, so there's still a little bit of room before I get there, but I want to test and just see what this thing, since I oiled those bearings, it's got a little bit of drag to it. I just want to see if it's reading at all. Yeah, about 2 or 3 inch-pounds. Okay, there's 22. It wants to be between 15 and 25. So we're right on 22. The previous measurement was about 15. I barely moved this thing. It doesn't take much to get that final movement. 22 inch-pounds. That's what I'm gonna go with. Okay, so how about 9.5? Instructions say between 7 and 9 for street applications, but I'm not gonna get any closer than that. So 9 and yeah, about 9.25. Man, that's gonna be perfect. All right, now I know that's without the caps on. I just wanted to test, make sure I'm in the ballpark. Now I'm gonna get those caps. I'm gonna get those all buttoned up, and I'll bring you back. With the cat bolts torqued to 87 foot-pounds, I did run a final paint test on it. I wanted to see where we ended up, and real happy with the results. I'll put up some close-ups of the drive and coast side. You'll see here we got nice oval patterns on the contact patch, so that's right where we want to be there. Now what I'm going to do is I didn't put any oil on these side bearings as we put them in. It just was going to get kind of messy. I knew I could do it afterwards, so we're gonna add some oil here now. All right, so now we're going to put the seal on here, and if you stuck around this long, here in just a minute when we get this all buttoned up, I'm going to announce a little giveaway, a free giveaway of something kind of unique. It's something I've been toying around with for about a year, a bigger concept, and this is kind of a proof of concept, but I'm going to break that to you here in just a minute. Let's get, this surface is clean, and the gasket that goes on here it's a rubber gasket. And I was always under the impression that you don't need sealer on a rubber gasket, but this one actually is fits a little odd here. I am going to put just a small smearing of RTV sealant on the bottom side here, just to help hold this down, as well as I'm going to put just a small bead on this metal surface here. I don't want moisture going this direction and continuing the rust pitting that we see here, but if I can put that little layer of gasket material there, I think that'll help solve that. Okay, that's all done now. We will fill it up later, but let me take you in the shop and share with you this little giveaway idea. In the next video, I'm going to be installing Mosier's one-piece axles into that housing. That's a great upgrade compared to the two-piece axles that came with it. It's going to add a lot of strength, and they came in last week, so I'll be able to jump right on that. Following that, I'm going to finish refreshing those drum brakes, because we're going to stick with drum brakes, and that'll be the video following the axle video. I hope you decide to stick around, and now let's talk about a quick giveaway. Based on a concept I've had for about 2 years, a bigger concept. I wanted to do just kind of a proof of concept on something quite different. Anyway, I ended up borrowing my mother's old embroidery machine, and I created some little keychains, Project Rowdy keychains, that I'm going to give away over the next several videos. In order to be included in the giveaway, you need to leave a comment on this video, and in the comments somewhere, but in the beginning, the end, somewhere, put hashtag Project Rowdy. And what I'll do is when this video gets 1,500 views, I will put, I'll use a random comment generator, and I'll pick someone randomly from those comments that have hashtag Project Rowdy, and I will contact you and get this mailed to you. And I've got about 5 more, so the next 5 videos, I'll also do the same thing. Every video I'm going to give away one of these silly little keychains. And again, this is a stepping stone to a bigger idea that I've got, and probably over the next video or 2 I'll be able to make that announcement. And I always like learning something new. This was quite a project. That was an old machine. I had to, the software we bought for it many years ago didn't work anymore, and so I had to go out and get some new software and kind of figure it all out. I spent 5 or 6 days, but anyway. So I hope you decide to get in on the giveaway, and if you like this type of content this week, subscriptions are free. You can subscribe to the channel and follow along. We're getting really close to being able to start assembling all these major components. I've already rebuilt the engine, I've rebuilt the transfer case, the transmission, now the axles, the frames. Going to get pushed off real soon to get it sandblasted and get it all prepped and ready. We're going to start assembling components. So we're about to be on maybe a little bit more of a fast track. So I hope you decide to follow along and hope to see you next time.